Um, right. Hello YouTube, and today I am going to be talking about one of my favourite horror movie franchises, and you guessed it, it's Friday the 13th. So yeah, I love Friday the 13th, as you can see, and yeah, so Friday the 13th, as a lot of horror fans will know, started in 1980. And it featured the crazed, loving mother slash camp cook slash, well, newly born serial killer. So Pamela Voorhees, her son Jason drowns. Now Jason, he was a good kid. He didn't deserve what he got. He didn't deserve to die. He didn't deserve to know. But yeah, she goes around killing camp counsellors and doing everything she can to prevent Camp Crystal Lake from being opened. And 1980, a group of teenagers becoming camp counsellors wanted to reopen the camp, and well, they almost got there, but she prevented them from opening Crystal Lake. And went on a killing spree with them all, on them all. So, and Jason was always seen in Pamela's memories until the very end, when when Alice chopped her head off, and yes, and they say Jason saw that happen, and that's what made him go into a crazed lunatic in part two. Part two is sort of set a couple of years on. Jason kills Alice, who was the last survivor in the original. At the end, we did see Jason at the end of Friday the 13th Part 1 from the lake. Anyway, in Part 2, he's got not the hockey mask, but the potato sack on his head. So he has a potato sack on his head, basically goes on a massive killing spree around Camp Crystal Lake with various murder weapons, including like a pickaxe and a machete, And then that ends where, Jason, well, is still on the loose. And then in part 3, which is another year later, they seem to have made one nearly every year in the 80s. The first one was 1980, 1981, part 3 was 1982, and that's when Jason got the iconic image of the hockey mask and the machete. And, that was a cool, I like that one. It's not the best 3D film. I think the 3D effects were unnecessary. And, it was good. Watching the kills and that, and the return of Pamela Voorhees. And also, he got axed in the mask, so the mask was like a bit worn away there. And they sort of kept it like that in many of the sequels. Part 4 was the final chapter, or said to be the final chapter, but obviously it weren't. Jason got hacked to death by his own machete from Tommy Jarvis. In part 4, he was portrayed by Corey Feldman, who did a lot of like movies as a kid. Don't do much now. So part 5. And also 1984. We missed a year. Was it 1983. Sorry, missed a year. 1984. Part 4 came out. It was the final chapter. Jason died. Then at the end, and then in part 5, I don't think it is set at Crystal Lake, but it's like it follows on Tommy Jarvis's story into part 5. He's played by a different actor. I can't remember his name, but he's much older, and he's taken to this mental place in the hope to rehabilitate him. But he's haunted by the constant thought of Jason. And then we find that there's a copycat killer on the loose who's idolised Jason. And Jason is, well, he's dead. And also, the copycat, his mask was different. He didn't have a marking there on the mask. There's a red marking. He had these markings there, but they were bigger and they were blue. So, yes, blue marks, hockey mask. And at the end of that, Tommy sort of became influenced by Jason. And then about another year later, 1986, Jason lives. He came back from the dead as a zombie, struck by lightning. Tommy wanted to be sure he was dead, so he kept stabbing it with a metal rod, and that worked as a lightning conductor, bringing Jason back. And he went out on, as usual, another killing spree with horny teenagers. Oh, there were kids there in it because it was reopening as a camp called Camp Forest Green. They renamed Crystal Lake at that point to forget about Jason. But when Jason came back, to him it will always be Camp Crystal Lake, and the town will be Crystal Lake to him. So he gets imprisoned in the lake, and he's stuck there, chained to a boulder. And then, he lies in wait until part 7, New Blood, when he meets a psychic telekinesis girl. I think that's what it is. And she goes out. She challenges Jason when he's out on his usual killing sprees. And then she stops him, and then, goes back to his watery grave. At that point, it was Kane Hodder who played Jason. He's my favourite Jason because he took the part seriously. So then, part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. For that one, they just wanted to, make a change for once instead of having that Crystal Lake. So they got a boat, and the boat flowed into a river into the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know anything at all on that, but the director did say that the fans will be a bit ticked off at it, and he was right. I mean, to be honest, I'm just glad they got Jason out of Crystal Lake, and he came back, doing his slashing and machete wielding around New York. And then that was it from Paramount Pictures with Friday the 13th, because Jason was melted away in some acid in the sewers of New York. And then after that, it was off screen for like 4 years until 1993. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday came out. Some unexplained reason, he got, he was alive again. The FBI trapped him, blew him up, and then the coroner was tempted into eating his heart. Throughout that one, he kept passing from person to person. That's not really my favourite one. Jason, he just doesn't look like Jason. The hockey mask is like welded into his flesh and stuff. But the ending was good though, when his hockey mask got dragged in to hell by Freddy, because we saw his arm sort of rise up and then take the mask down to hell, and then we saw his laughing, because that set the events for Freddy vs. Jason, but they never picked up on that until 10 years later in Freddy vs. Jason. But before Freddy vs. Jason, they made Jason X. Now, Jason X, I have to say that's terrible, Jason Going to Space. It starts where it's a couple of years on from the events of Freddy vs. Jason, and then he gets frozen for 450 years, and he's killing in the future. Now, the makeup effects for Jason was poor. He wasn't bald or bald zombified. He had hair, and it was just Kane Hodder in a hockey mask. That's what it were. They didn't try hard enough with that, I don't think. Probably because they spent a lot of the budget on the effects, which I don't think were needed. Taking Jason to space was unnecessary. The big cyborg like Jason was also unnecessary. There's just so much wrong with that one. I don't know where to begin. And then Freddy vs. Jason. Now, I loved that. I enjoyed it. I was Team Jason all the way, obviously. I was rooting for Jason. But Freddy vs. Jason, it was more like Nightmare on Elm Street with Jason in there. Another mistake I think they made was, not bringing back Kane Hodder as Jason. It was Ken Kinzinger or something. I'm not sure. I can't pronounce the last name right. Anyway, I think that it should have been Kane, because Jason was taller and bigger and stuff, and as you know, if you've seen the film, he did kick Freddy's ass. He had Freddy on his knees. So it's a shame they never made Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, because that would have been a good one. The Evil Dead's Ash Williams versus Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, Freddy and Jason. But they did continue that into comics. Now, 2009, Friday the 13th was remade. To be honest, it was quite a good remake. I'm not really a huge fan of remakes, but the remake was okay. It was like plot mashups of parts 1 to 4 put together, but it was good. It was all right. Derek Mears, played a good Jason, and it was okay. I'm usually hard to impress with horror movie remakes. So that was it. And then I've heard now that they're gonna remake Friday the 13th again in found footage, and it won't feature Jason. I'm thinking it's not Jason without Friday the 13th. I know he wasn't in the original, but he took the franchise on as his own. But I don't really know what to expect from this found footage reboot. I just hope it doesn't ruin it, the whole series and that. Another thing, Friday the 13th, the series, was just a knockoff. It took the title from the film series. It had nothing to do with Jason. It was a different story every week. And I heard they're going to do another series of Friday the 13th, only this time it's going to have Jason and his mother Pamela in it. And I've been told it's going to focus on their origin. But up to now, I think it's just rumours. But, if they are going to do it, I wouldn't mind seeing an origin story like Bates Motel. That Psycho prequel modernised, it's rebooted. And they should do that with Friday the 13th. They should do that with Halloween, Michael Myers, or maybe even Freddy Krueger. So, Well, I've just gone on and on. Hope I haven't given too many spoilers away to some fans that haven't seen some of the movies. I apologise there. And, time I'd wrapped it up and stuff. Thanks for watching, and, please like or comment and subscribe if you want, your choice. So, yes, until next time, goodbye.